You're live, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this Central Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 22nd of November 2023. I declare the meeting open. My name is Councillor John Driver and I am the chair of this committee. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referencing or referring to the agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Mr. Young, could I have apologies for absence, please?
We don't have any apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much. So on to agenda item 3, minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, the 30th of August 2023, and found on pages 7 to 10 are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Can we agree by assent, members? Thank you very much. On to item 4, declarations of interest, which I have to read out this statement. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and Appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are required to disclose any such item as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Could I have any declarations of interest? Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Agenda item 6, non-pecuniary, as I do know the applicant.
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. Councillor Spenceley, Paula Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 6, the applicant is known to me as a fellow trustee of the Maldon Festival.
Thank you very much. Any others? Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, Chair, I also know the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. A non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 6, as I know the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I mean, I will ask.
Number 5 as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Councillor Miller.
Agenda item number 5 and number 6, again, I know the applicant.
Thank you. And Councillor Lay.
Agenda item 5 and 6, as I know the person involved.
Thank you very much. Any other disclosures? Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Shaughnessy. Go on, and then
item 5, yes, I do know the applicant.
Right, okay. And Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a knowledge of 5 and 6, but I do have had correspondence with residents from 7 and 8, so I have responded and acknowledged that correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spenceley.
Yes, I have also acknowledged correspondence on items 7 and 8, and I should have added 5 to the first one. So. Thank you.
Right, okay. Councillor Stilts.
I'm going to say exactly the same.
Right, okay. Councillor Miller.
I've had items 7 and 8 as well in previous correspondence. Thank you.
Okay. Are we there? I think we are just about there. I think we can probably now start the meeting proper. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 5 then. So this can be found on pages 11 to 16. I don't believe we've had any members' update relating to this. So, Ms Matthews, if you could present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Those members who were here at the committee earlier on in the year may recognise some of this, because it's an amendment to an application that members considered. So this is a presentation for items. Apologies, I've got the wrong item number now. It should be 5, the top one, and 6 for the second one. Yeah, so it's joint presentation for both, but I'll just do the first one, item 5 first. So this is the application site, and the application is for a change of use from office and a former treatment rooms to two short-term holiday lets and associated works to part of the first floor fronting the high street, including the installation of secondary glazing. So this is a plan showing the location of the application site on the high street, which fronts the high street and also Whitehorse Lane to the rear. And this is the block plan showing the 2 holiday lets in orange and green. The orange is primarily the former offices, and the green is primarily the former treatment rooms. And this is existing first floor layout. Again, got orange and green, the same coloration. So the high street is to the right on that plan. Okay. And then we've got some proposed secondary glazing to the high street elevation, including the bay window, which was an issue of contention as part of the previous appeal, but that issue has now been addressed in terms of the impact on listed building. And then we've also got some other secondary glazing to the rear, so that's to the second holiday let. Got some photos. I'm sure you're very familiar with the building on the high street. So having reassessed the application in light of the revised description, and the revision being the addition of a second holiday let, it's considered the proposal is no less acceptable than that considered by the Central Area Planning Committee on the 31st of August in relation to listed building and living condition effects, taking into account the additional information submitted as part of the current application. Necessary financial contribution towards RAMS hasn't been secured yet, but any further resolution to grant plan permission could be subject to Section 106 having first been entered into by the relevant parties. And on that basis, the application is recommended for approval, again subject to 106 being completed and conditions as set out in your papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Matthews. We have public participants for this planning application, and in line with the public participation scheme, I now invite them to read out their submission. So I think we have a presentation from Mr Farley, who's the agent. Mr Farley, are you? Are you online? Yes, you can hear me. Okay. Hopefully you can also see the timer. Is that the case?
I shouldn't need it today.
All right. Well, that's fine. Anyway, you have 2 minutes. You can see it on the timer. I will stop you after those 2 minutes, should you go on, but hopefully you won't. All right. Thank you. Over to you when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee again, and please accept my apologies for the previous iteration of this proposal if it was not sufficiently clear in describing what was being proposed. Given that the recommendation for this and the associated listed building consent application are both for approval, I do not intend to take up too much time, but I would like to take the opportunity to also thank the planning officer for the positive recommendation and for working through the outstanding issues with us proactively and pragmatically. However, and hopefully this approach will continue through prompt discharge of conditions. Just to clarify on the report that the unilateral undertaking has been provided along with monitoring and checking fee, and so officers should be in a position to issue the planning permission imminently if you agree to it this evening, subject to sign off from your legal department. And I'm sure that the applicant will have a stream of new visitors spending time and money in Maldon town centre within a matter of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Farley. Members, I now invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have to the reports. Any questions or comments? No. Well, in that case, do we have a proposal? Councillor Miller, you're proposing we accept. Councillor Jennings seconding. Can I just check, are there any conditions that we would want to apply if this were to be accepted?
Chairman, only the ones that are on the agenda.
Right, okay.
Which cover various issues, and there's and I can confirm the draft. Well, a unilateral undertaking has been submitted, but I am waiting for legal to say that it's okay. So that is in hand, if you like, but that process hasn't quite been finalised yet. Okay.
So we've had a proposal from Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Jennings, to accept this application. Can I have a vote in favour of that motion, please? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 6 then, which can be found on pages 27 to 34. And again, Ms Matthews, could you present the report?
Thank you, Chairman. The presentation is exactly the same as the previous one, and just a reminder that it is agenda item 6 we're talking about now, not 7 as on the presentation there. It's the same application site, it's the same 2 units. Obviously the King's Head is a grade 2 listed building, and therefore the physical work to the building require listed building consent in addition to the planning permission. And these are the floor plans, existing floor plans. The main issue of contention in terms of the listed building previously was the installation of secondary glazing to some of the historic windows on the frontage of the building, but further details have been submitted, and our conservation officer is now content with the details and considers that it can be done in a way that wouldn't be detrimental to the historic significance of the building. So that these are the ones for the front, as I said before, and these are ones I don't know whether you can see, but they're numbered down here as the other windows that would be given secondary glazing, and that's primarily for noise attenuation for the occupiers of the holiday lets. Again, the photos. So again, it's considered the proposal no less acceptable than the proposal considered back in August by the Central Area Committee, and in relation to listed building effects. Again, taking into account the additional information which has been submitted as part of the current application, and on that basis recommended that listed building consent is granted, subject to conditions as set out in your papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Matthews. We don't have any public participants for this particular planning application. So members, any questions, comments? No. Do we have a proposal? Councillor Miller, you're proposing. I think Councillor Nick Spenceley this time just got his hand in just quicker, so seconded by Councillor Nick Spenceley. So could we vote on that proposal, please, that we accept this? Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to agenda item 7, found on pages 35 to 44. We haven't had a members update in relation to this, so Mr Johnson, if you could present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I will be taking the planning and the listed building together under the same presentation. They cover the same details, except for specifically what they want. Members are familiar with that. So, details of the proposal are found at section 3 under summary in terms of location, which is north side of High Street, within the Maldon conservation area. It's a 3-storey mid-terrace grade 2 listed building, comprising a mix of ground floor commercial, and first and second floor residential. The residential flats at first and second floors are located towards the front of the building. So we can see the building there outlined. If we just scroll down to the, and again, just within the wider Maldon High Street context. And block plan, scroll down again. Okay, got the existing ground floor. So the front of the building is to the left. I suppose the smaller left-hand quarter of the plan, or third of the plan, that comprises the element to which the residential are above on the first and second floors. The remainder is a sort of contiguous unit which comprises the bulk of the proposal site. So here we have the proposed ground floor. Again, just to the bottom where we can see the arrows, and it clearly says there the location of the condenser units. That's along that southern, or rather that eastern, but southern on the plan there, external alleyway. And just above that, again to the right hand side, is the kitchen area. Just sort of in that area there. The main area towards the center, that's comprises the seating area and the bar. So we just scroll down again. And this proposed ground floor layout plan, pretty straightforward there. We can see the seating area, again, kitchen to the right, toilets to the top left-hand side, and a bit more seating towards the front. We can just scroll down again. The existing ventilation, there is a ventilation system within the building which will be utilized as part of the proposals and enhanced as per the details in the application, and which I will touch on further with the presentation. But we can see the ventilation system in the kitchen. And again, just to remind that there is no residential above this element. The venting is to the rear of the building, which is to our right-hand side. Again, I'll touch on that in a bit more detail, but also set out within the report, the ventilation, the inlet and the extraction units. And any low-level discharges towards that rear area there. So scroll down again. Again, this is a section showing the kitchen area and showing the nature of the ventilation system. Again, that's just another section showing another section of the same. We've got the existing and proposed. There are no changes to the frontage except for under the advertisement consent, where there will be some adverts, but that's the only change. Otherwise, to the fabric, it will remain as it is. This is the existing side, which is the east elevation. And again, this is the proposed side, and this was to the bottom part of the floor plan that we saw earlier. And we can see the location of the condensing units. So we just scroll back up a little bit, and we can see that they are enclosed with an acoustic enclosure to attenuate any noise that they make. I mean, these are high level condensing units, which are fairly low level in noise emission in any event. But further noise emissions again are again attenuated because of the design of the enclosures. The existing and proposed other side, no changes there. And this is the rear. We can see the existing and to the proposed, to the left-hand side, we can see the side elevation of the condensing units. To the rear, that large, it looks like a door, but it's actually a louvered panel. It is to that which is set out in the report, where there will be it will be blanked off predominantly, except for where there will be the inlet and the exhaust for, again, any of the fumes, but also including the mitigation of any odor through that panel. Again, we have photographs. Again, these are the condensing units, as I know members are aware. They have been installed, but they will be enclosed as per the proposed drawings. I mean, these photographs were taken a while ago. And that's the louvered panel which I was discussing. There is the rear doorway to the right. And here we just have some photographs. Again, as everyone knows, works had been carried out during this period, but some photographs have been taken of how the works have progressed and the nature of the layout to so far. Again, just on that, this is just to point out that part of the works was to expose the original roof and to restore and make good. This is part of the works which has been taking place. Again, just some more of how detailing has been restored, the decoration installed. So, is there any more? Just scroll through. Okay, so that's really to give a flavour. So, planning permission is sought for 5 condenser units contained within a 4-sided acoustic louvered enclosure and 1 number cellar cooler condenser unit, similarly contained within an acoustic enclosure. The listed building application comprises full internal alterations and refurbishment. Full details of the components of the proposal are at 3.1.5 of the report, including bar, toilets, kitchen, and the extraction and ventilation system. The next section really is just for clarification. In terms of the use of the property, section 3.1.5 of the report discusses the previous uses, those being as a Morrison's and a post office before that. Both these uses fell within class A1 of the previous iteration of the 2007 Town and Country Planning Use Classes Order. In 2020, the Use Classes Order was overhauled, involving the removal and replacement of use classes. Classes A1, 2, and 3 were amalgamated, and I'm sort of generalizing, the bits and pieces of them, into a new Class E. As such, shops, your general high street type shops, and restaurants now fall within the same class, and permission to move from a shop to a cafe restaurant was no longer required. As a result, the change of use within the use class is one which is permitted by the development order. So therefore, no planning permission is required. The planning application, therefore, is only for the condenser and cooling units. And the corollary is that no objection can be raised to the use of the premises as a food and eating establishment. The application states the opening hours are 9 to 11, Monday to Sunday. In terms of the condenser and cellar cooler units, the proposal have been assessed by our Environmental Health Service and found to be satisfactory. In reaching that position, officers are satisfied with the position of the condenser units on the ground, with the position of the condenser units on the ground adjacent to the external eastern wall. In addition, the submitted noise management plan includes details of the acoustic enclosure to the condenser unit, which will attenuate any noise from the units to within acceptable standards. Details of the noise and odour mitigation for the kitchen ventilation, including the blanking of the louver, except for the active kitchen vent fresh air inlet and exhaust connections, are similarly acceptable to prevent nuisance from the low-level discharge and intake of the system. And again, just to remind, these are located to the rear wall of the building, which is away from where the residential are located, which is towards the opposite end. In respect of the listed building works, the activity, which has largely taken place prior to approval, has been monitored and assessed by the Council's Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Officer, and found to involve largely works to the modern fabric of the building and not the original architectural context or original fabric. And as such, the work that is carried out, and you can see with the photographs there, preserves, is sympathetic and consistent with the grading of the building. In particular, the proposal to re-expose the decorative roof are welcomed. Although the works had taken place prior to approval, no detriment was found, and as such, there was no need to carry out enforcement action to seize the works. As stated above, planning permission is not required for the use of the premises as a food and eating establishment, and the operation could have commenced except for the installation of the condensing units. Furthermore, the taking of formal enforcement action is normally a last resort, and only where negotiation and discussion has failed or clearly unacceptable works have taken place. We found that negotiations had been successful and no unacceptable works had taken place. Although not part of the application details, the applicant has submitted details of their noise complaints and neighbour liaison procedures and confirmed there will be no external seating area. That ends the presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. And we have public participants for this planning application, and in line with the public participation scheme, I now invite them to read out their submission. There are three, so we'll start with Mrs. Wright and then on to Mr. Panton and then on to the agent, Mrs. Russell. So could we have, please, Mrs. Wright? Okay, so if you can press the button, which Councillor Lagan has, yep, that's good. So on the screen you'll see there is a clock, which you've now seen once before. So when you're ready, if you start, and then the clock will start counting down. Thank you, Mrs. Wright.
We object to this planning application being contrary to policies D1 and D3 of the Local Development Plan. The work has already been completed, therefore the planning applications are incorrect and should be refiled under section 73A as retrospective. This establishment will have a direct effect on the numerous neighbouring properties, noise, privacy and vehicles in Bull Lane. This restaurant and bar will be open 7 days a week, all day long until late. This will have a significant impact on our well-being and quality of life. The vast single glazed windows will allow noise to penetrate into the immediate neighbourhood. The fumes and noise from the kitchen extractor will affect all residents of Bull Lane. This case is no different from Luigi's at the Limes that should be treated with the exact same scrutiny. The old post office flats are particularly concerned about the access to their properties from the fire exit and smokers to the shared area. We are disappointed in all local departments and local authorities that this conversion was allowed to be completed with little or no intervention. We call for this application to be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Right, can we move on then to Mr. Panton? Thank you. So if you could come and take the seat being vacated. And again, if I just remind you, you can see the clock. So when you start, you will have 2 minutes. Okay?
Thank you.
In your time.
My name is Nigel Panton. I represent the freehold owners of 4345 High Street, Maldon, and I've been advising them since their purchase. The property has lain empty for nearly 8 years now, and despite all efforts to let the building, we came up against major problems with the condition of the inside and outside of the building and the fact it's grade 2 listed. The owners, the current owners, my clients, have carried out extensive work to refurbish the external fabric at the rear main hall, and we have been approached by loungers about 18 months ago because they could see the potential for refurbishing the inside, which is also, a lot of that has been down to my client's expense as well. This building needs to be brought back into life, has always been a commercial use, and will enhance the vitality and viability of the High Street in Maldon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Panton. Okay, and then finally, Mrs. Russell. And again, I'll just remind you, though you've seen it now twice, that there's a clock on there, so as soon as you start, it'll start counting down and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the planning agent for the applications. As you will have seen from the committee papers and heard tonight, you've heard a detailed description and assessment of the applications that are in front of you. You should have also received some correspondence directly from the applicant in relation to some of the key issues which have been the focus of some of the objections to the proposal. So I've just got a couple of really brief points to make. As has been mentioned, the applications before you are for planning and listed building consent for the internal fit out and the installation of the external plant equipment, plus advertisement consent. The use of the premises is already permitted under the extant planning permission at the site and does not comprise part of the applications. A premises licence was granted back in May with no objections received. So the key planning considerations for assessment tonight are the impact of the physical works on the listed building and the impact of the proposed condenser unit equipment on local amenity. With regard to the impact on the listed building, as you've heard, the applicants engaged extensively with the heritage officers who are content that the works present no harm to the listed building or its surroundings. The officers visited the site several times to assess the proposals and has no concerns. The applicant fully acknowledges that much of the works have been undertaken prematurely in advance of the applications being determined, and fully accepts that this is not standard approach and should not have been done. With regard to the plant and extract, this has been designed to minimise any impact in terms of noise and odour. A noise impact assessment has been undertaken, the measures identified in the report and endorsed by the EHO were incorporated into the design. The EHO has also visited the site several times and is confident that the proposals are acceptable. In summary, it's considered that the sympathetic refurbishment of the building will enable it to be brought back into beneficial use, having been vacant for a considerable length of time, and add into the vitality and viability of the High Street. The proposed occupation of the building will also bring economic benefits, employing 30 new members of staff, and represents an opportunity to secure investment in the centre of Maldon. The application proposal complies with all relevant policies of the local development plan, and there are no material considerations or planning policy grounds which we consider that would justify planning permission being withheld. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Russell. Spot on 2 minutes. Okay, members, I now invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on the report. Members. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, Mr. Johnson, if I may. You talk about when the change of class happened. So the actual work that was undertaken didn't need planning permission. I think that was what you made clear, and that's quite clear in the report, that the decorative, so that we don't need to do that anymore. And the only thing we're considering is the condenser units, which are in place at this moment and meets all the required standards that are put in for noise mitigation. and the application therefore meets all legal requirements. There's no material reasons to that we could turn this down if members would wish to do so. So it ticks all the boxes with regard to the requirements under planning legislation.
That is correct, Councillor Leggan.
Thank you.
Councillor Nick Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. So I refer to paragraph 5.2.4 in item 7. So this concerns deliveries to the premises, and apparently the agent has confirmed that the applicant's happy to agree to limiting deliveries between 8 and 6 p.m. Now, I assume with any Class E use, deliveries would happen, whether it was retail or restaurant. And it's good to see that there is some limit on deliveries, but how could consideration be given to the periods when residents might be setting off for work or returning from work, so between 8 and 9, 5 and 6, say, when they might find difficulty in accessing their premises?
Again, because of the nature of this application, in that planning permission is required for the use, we have no control over those matters. It would be as if any other use, or even under the previous use class, the Morrisons would have occupied that and carried out their deliveries. Under this application, we're I was encouraged by the fact that lounges as a larger establishment have a protocol in terms of how they carry out their business with neighbouring residents. As said earlier, they have their noise management plan, their neighbourhood liaison officer, to try and mitigate some of these issues and listen to concerns. That's about as far as we can go in terms of supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Spenceley.
Well, I have to say that I think it's most unfortunate that the works have been carried out before the planning permission has been sought, and I think that has caused huge issues with the local community. That having been said, Mr Johnson, I would ask for confirmation from you as to whether or not the fact that it's retrospective can be taken into consideration in this, because my understanding is that, as you've indicated, that isn't a planning consideration tonight. So I just want to be sure of that. Thank you.
Johnson.
That is correct. I would confirm that is a position. And then again, just to be clear, I know sometimes we mention about works being carried out without planning permission. It's not unlawful to carry out works without planning permission. It may become unlawful if an enforcement notice is served, if those works are unacceptable or non-compliant with policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. Any other questions from members or comments? No. Councillor Lake.
Thank you, Chairman. I just draw attention to paragraph 5.1.6, which obviously my colleagues have mentioned, the comments from Tim Housen, that work should, it's quite clear that he does not want work, the officer does not want work started and then have to go back. There could be a potential risk to the applicant or any applicant that does this. So we don't want to set a precedent, given the history of the town, that Grade 2 listed buildings are altered and then seeking forgiveness later for work that's undertaken. So I think it's an important point to emphasise that process should have engaged the officer first, and that should not have been started, which is the emphasis of the other councillors here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. No, sorry. Members of the public can't speak at this point, so there's been 3 opportunities for members of the public to speak, and that is it, I'm afraid, in terms of our procedures. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Lagan.
Chair, you're very kind. Let me come back. You try and look at these things, and the liaison's been poor. Let's face it, I think that the whole of the situation with lounges could have been so much better had they liaised with the residents above it, because that to me, if you engage people, and explain the whole process, what you can make a decision upon and what you can't make a decision upon, people are understanding. So I think when we received, as members, received a letter of correspondence from loungers themselves, basically saying that they regret the processes that they said. Well, that's all very well and good saying that to us, but it really needs to be said to the residents. And I'm pleased that at the end of the day, the agent has actually mentioned that in their presentation to us. So I think something to learn, like Councillor Leah said, we need to learn from this, and the process that we work in is the planning process, and it's very, very strict. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. Yes, as you've heard Mr. Johnson say, we have to apply planning policy to the decision making that we've got this evening, though we recognise some issues in terms of the process. However, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, is there a proposal? We've had a proposal that this is accepted by the officers. Do I need a proposer for that, or can I just go for a seconder for that, since we've had a proposal? That's it. I need a proposer for accepting that planning application. Thank you,
Councillor. Propose under section 1, we approve.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lay, second it. Can we have a vote to accept this planning application, please? Those in favour? Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to agenda item 8. And again, Mr. Johnson, could you take us through this application, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I think this probably would be quite brief. This application comprises advertisement. I'm taking the advertisement and the listed building application for the advertisements as one. Advertisement and listed building consents are sought for the installation of signage, changes to external materials, including the repainting of doors and windows and some minor glazing alterations. The signage comprises of one externally illuminated fascia sign, which would be located above the main entrance door on the front, which is a southern elevation of the property. One externally illuminated hanging sign and one internally illuminated menu board, which would also be located on the front elevation. The listed building and conservation officer has advised that the proposed signage, including a modestly scaled halo lit individual metal lettering and a trough lit painted timber hanging sign, together with an internally illuminated menu board, would be sympathetic to the character of the listed building and the area. He appreciates that a degree of illumination would be justified due to the intended restaurant use. The proposed advertisements are considered to be appropriate for the area. Due to its location, the adverts would not harm the character and appearance of the building in accordance with policies D1 and D3 of the LDP. And you can see the advertisements there. If we just have just quickly scroll through. Sorry, you may have done it while I was looking down, so apologies. I think they're fairly they're fairly self-explanatory. But if members want any more detail about them in their deliberations, we can go back to any one of the slides there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have public participants for this planning application. So in line with the public participation scheme, I now invite them to read out their submissions. So firstly, again, Mrs. Wright. Right, okay, you are down for this particular planning application as well. You have an opportunity to, or not. If it's the same as you said before, then that's fine. Okay, then in that case, There's no need to read that again. And also, I think this is the applicant or the agent, Mr. John Berkeley's. Yeah, okay, so it will be the same as well. Okay, in which case, thank you very much. So, members, I now invite you to put any questions or make any comments. I think, Councillor Miller, you had your hand up before.
Thank you, Chair. Where's the post box on the drawings? It's still there, but on the drawings we just saw, there's no post box. That's there then on the photo, but on the drawings, it's not there. I assume it's not being moved.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
They're slight overstepping of the mark.
But is it not in the way of the side on the left of the door? Would it not get in the way of that sign that we've got to the door on the left as we look at it? That one there? Would the post box not be in the way? No? Oh, it's close. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Councillor Lagan?
Well, I think because it's such an important and iconic building, I think that the thought that's gone into the signage is very good. There's been some interesting uses of that building in my time, and being born here, I've seen it since I walked the streets as a kid. The gaudy yellow signs from previous occupiers. Other parts of the high street have some very interesting livery, let's put it that way, in a conservation area. But I think that this doesn't overkill. Obviously, the illumination worries a little bit for residents above, but I think they've thought of that. And I'd like to commend them on their choice of colours and the way that they've thought about that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lagan. Any other? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you. Can you just point out where exactly the externally illuminated hanging sign would be? Well, that's the cafe bar sign. Yeah, there's a lamp there. That's there already. But where is the illuminated hanging sign? Where is that going to be situated? That one.
Yeah, you just had it.
I think they're asking about where.
Where on the building?
Oh, there.
Oh, right at the end there. Oh, okay. Right. Can't see the point of that.
Okay.
The entrance has enough. It's just. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members? Do we have a proposal in that case, Councillor Lagan?
I propose we accept the officer's recommendations.
Do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Lay?
I second that.
Thank you very much. Can we have a vote then, please, members? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, carried. On to then agenda item 9, found on pages 53 to 62. Mr. Johnson, please, could you present this report?
I took the.
I would take. I've separated it. I mean, because it's a separate. We need to take a vote on this, so you can just remind people of what this is, and then we can take a vote on this as well.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. The presentation comprised both the listed building and the advertisement elements of this proposal. Agenda item 9 is specifically the advertisement. I've given the presentation on the details of that, and really just a summary of what I've said previously is that the advertisements are considered to be appropriate for the area, and due to the location of the adverts, they would not harm the character and appearance of the building in accordance with policies D1 and D3 of the LDP. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Members, any comments? Some of you have raised a comment anyway last time, but any comments? Councillor Burwood.
I just want to be 100% clear, because it seems to be in a little bit of what we actually voted for, because that last vote was for the signage, which was that agenda item 9.
Agenda item 8, I think, was the frontage.
Okay, so
specifically,
right,
agenda
gotcha.
item 9
Okay.
refers to advertisements. Am I
Right, gotcha. I was just getting a bit.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members or questions? No. Can we have? Is there a proposal then? Councillor Lagan again.
It must be consistent. I've got the recommend to accept the officer's recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lagan. Councillor Jennings, are you seconding that? Okay, thank you. Could the member have a vote then, please? Those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, we now move on to item 10. Any other items of business that the chair decides are urgent? You'll be glad the answer to that is none. So at 8:21, I close the meeting. Thank you very much. Can I remind members?